Hello, it's Dr. Kevin Jackson. I want to welcome you to lecture for week 4, and we're CHR 104, Teaching Methods and Materials. Let's go ahead and jump into the lesson for today. We're focusing on social, cultural, and psychological foundations of Christian education. As you can see on the presentation, social, cultural foundations, influence of culture is one aspect of it. There's social norms, things that are done within society that have become norms, and structures on Christian education, how what's taking place in society impacts what's taking place in Christian education. So we're going to take a close look at that. We're also going to look at the psychological foundations, cognitively, how individuals think, reason of all age levels, from your adolescents, even smaller than those, young adults and senior adults, uh, their emotional intelligence, and the developmental factors that affect learning with Christian context. And then we want to look at that intersection of both the social, cultural, and psychological influences in Christian education. The role of Christian education, the role of culture in Christian education. So let's define what we mean when we say the definition of culture. We're talking about the shared values that society creates and it develops a culture. Okay, so there's an American culture. Then there's a culture in your home, in the church that you attend. A culture has been established there. Shared values, their practices, how you worship, um, how things go in terms of the order of service, um, dress codes, and other uh, doctrine that may be utilized. All of that develops the culture of a people who are gathered together and the belief that shapes that community, which is centered around doctrine. Then we look at the term cultural context. We're looking at uh, the local culture, and we can broaden it out to regional, global cultures, and how that it influences Christian education in terms of everything that culture is made up of, right? Uh, it's made of art, it's made of music, uh, literary writings, different sayings and values and traditions that are practiced. Well, how does those things impact Christian education? And as an educator, that is going to be important, whether it's in a Christian education school or if it's in Sunday school or discipling someone. We have to consider the cultural context in which we are training people from a biblical perspective. Some of those examples, as I just alluded to, are worship styles, language, theological emphasis in different cultural contexts, because different cultural contexts will focus on those things that have been deemed to be important in their culture. Where you may go to one culture and there is a strict adherence to clothing, what men wear, what women wear, and then in another culture, that is not what is important to them. What is important to them is the way that family structure and the way that you treat the different people in the family structure. The older people are respected and all those kinds of things. So cultural context really matters uh, in education in general, but certainly also in Christian education. Certainly, if you are located in an area where there is great diversity, uh, you will need to consider those cultural contexts in order to be an effective teacher of the Bible to those individuals. So let's look at the role of society in Christian education. There are social structures that have been established. The family does not look, here's an old term, always like the nuclear family. There may not be a mother and father that is in the household. It could be a single parent, or it could be a grandparent that is raising their grandchildren as their own, or some other family member. So the social structures are important when determining how to approach educating students uh, on any level. The community in which those students come out of, what's the makeup of that community? Those things have to be considered. One, in the secular education system, it is important that teachers are uh, cognizant of the backgrounds, the cultural aspects of students, the community that they come out of, because all of those things are going to play a significant role in that student's ability to learn, the perspective that they're going to utilize, the lens that they're going to look through, even for based on what we're teaching. So, a student that comes from one cultural context may view the biblical text differently than one who comes from another. And as a teacher, it's being able to direct that learning so that each learner, regardless of where he or she comes from, are still able to engage in the curriculum that you've developed. Education and social change. Christian education as a tool for fostering social justice, equity, and transformation. How does what's going on in society impact how we deliver education as it relates to biblical aspects? How does that reconcile with what's going on in society? So there may be violence. There could be social hot topics that are discussed. How do we integrate that in the educational experience, Christian educational experience of our students? Okay. Some of the things that one would look at is the Black church role in social movements. In the civil rights era, the Black church played a very significant role in aiding civil rights activists in achieving their goals of uh, getting America to see the need to provide um, equity, equal rights to individuals, not based on their color or ethnic background, but because they are American citizens, that there should be an extension of those rights that every other person has. The Black church became that voice, that vehicle that the social justice movement utilized in order to get that message across and to bring about transformation and change as well. In terms of psychological foundations in Christian education, so we're going to just go over some of these aspects: cognitive development, Piaget's stages of development, and their application to teaching Christian principles. Let's take a look at a few of them. So, in terms of Piaget's application in Christian education, understanding his stages, this can help Christian educators adapt their teaching methods to the developmental level of their students. So, if you're teaching uh, preschoolers, if you're teaching adolescents, if you're teaching teenagers, young adults, seasoned adults, all of those have different cognitive development levels. And therefore, the teacher has to approach that teaching moment sensitive to the cognitive development of those individuals for whom you are teaching. Let's look at what that looks like for Christian education. So, young children, the pre-operational stage is what Piaget would state, may need concrete examples and stories like Bible stories so that they can relate to the biblical uh, text that you are presenting to them. So, Sunday school, vacation Bible school. If you look at the vacation Bible school curriculum, it is geared towards the sensory and the type of learning aspects that those students have to engage with in order for them to really grasp what was being taught. It is because at that age and that developmental stage, that is what is needed for their ability to grasp the information. Now we look at older children, concrete operational stage. They may benefit from activities that encourage logical reasoning, such as comparing different stories or teachings from the Bible. Okay. Whereas for our younger children, we're using those stories, and perhaps they are looking at cartoon-like presentation of biblical texts and explain it in a story-like manner. And then our older children are able to compare stories to determine what are the differences, what are the similarities, and what is the message that is being presented from whatever biblical text that is being utilized. Then our teenagers, formal operational stage, they can engage in deeper theological discussions, right? Hypothetical scenarios and applications of faith in real world situations. So you can take some of those topics, societal topics, hot topics, and put them beside biblical texts and um, the doctrine perhaps that is a part of your church, and what is it that they would do provided they were in this situation. All right, we're giving them those hypothetical scenarios so that they can learn from that experience and provide some insight of this is the way that they will handle it, and this is number one, this is how they have interpreted what you have taught from the Bible, whether it's BBS, young adult Bible study, adult Bible study, or what have you, and how they take that biblical teaching and put it upon situations that are real world situations, real life situations, because that's what we want. We want them to cognitively learn the information, but also be able to apply it as well. So we look at behavioral learning theory, Skinner's reinforcement theory, and Bible teaching. Skinner's reinforcement theory is based on the idea that behavior is shaped and maintained by its consequences. In essence, behaviors that are followed by positive outcomes, that's reinforcements, are likely to be repeated, while those followed by negative outcomes, punishments, are lessly likely to occur. And so when we apply this to biblical teaching, this theory can be used to encourage students to engage with and apply positive reinforcement, adding something desirable to encourage a behavior, negative reinforcement, removing something undesirable to encourage a behavior. Okay, so positive reinforcement, as students are learning their memory verses. As a result of that, then they are given some kind of prize or some kind of privilege. Negative reinforcement, perhaps we're in a group setting and we have asked everyone to put their phones away, and students have decided, no, I'm not. And so the phones are taken away so that everyone can be focused on what is being said and what is being presented. Okay. So those are some examples of that positive and negative reinforcement. And then, you know, adding punishment, adding something undesirable or taking away something desirable to reduce a behavior. Okay. So shaping, also gradually guiding students' behavior by reinforcing steps toward a desired outcome. So walking with that student as they are shifting and transforming in terms of their behavior. All right. Punishment. Okay, you're talking, so go. You're going to have a timeout now, or you're going to wait outside of the room there, kind of gather yourself in thoughts, and then come back in and say how you would do different what you were doing before that was disruptive to the class. Okay, so these are all methods that are utilized in order to assist students, and it will range from positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, punishment, and shaping as well. So that deals with the behavioral learning theories as shared in the presentation. So there are different learning theories in Christian education as well. So we're looking at the social, cultural, and the psychological foundations of Christian education. We're considering culture, we're considering the backgrounds of students, diversity of students, and how that interacts with the education, the curriculum. What kind of impact does that have on our ability to teach? And we'll also looked at it from a developmental sense as well, of age appropriate learning. All right. And so now we're looking at those learning theories, behaviorism, reward based learning, applications in Bible memory. Right. If you do this, then this is what is going to happen for you as a reward. Cognitism, active learning, integration of faith with critical thinking. So we're presenting students with situations, hypothetical situations, and they're able to apply what they have learned to those situations. And then constructivism, learners build their own understanding, applying biblical narratives to personal experiences, okay, where the student is given the opportunity to guide their own learning. There's very little interaction from the teacher, from the Sunday school teacher, from the one who's discipling them. But they're giving enough information that they may make their own decisions, and then we're able to review what they have developed in their own process. Let's also look at the emotional and psychological needs in Christian education. So when we look at emotional intelligence, we're really focusing on the importance of understanding emotions in spiritual growth, how students react to others in the classroom, to what's been brought from home, what took place at home on the way to church, on the way to Sunday school, vacation Bible school, or Christian school, how they are feeling about the curriculum, the information that's being presented. Did it trigger something? Did it make them angry? Did it make them happy? Did it make them sad? We have to consider the emotional intelligence of students. And then the identity formation. The objective of our teaching is really to bring about a change and transformation of the student. And so how Christian education shapes one's identity in Christ, that we're not just giving information, but information that is going to lead to transformation, where they begin to put on the image of Christ, right? They begin to implement those things that you are teaching in the classroom, in Sunday school, discipling an individual in the Bible study or what have you. But it's not just information, but it is getting into their hearts, and it's shaping them and bringing them to a place of transformation. So let's look at integrating social, cultural, and psychological foundations. A holistic approach is integrating culture, society, and psychology into a cohesive Christian education model. It's utilizing all the resources that are available to us, looking at diversity, looking at how students learn, looking at their cognitive development stage, utilizing all of that information to ensure that the student is learning in a way that it's best for the student. Tailored learning, how to adapt teaching strategies to meet both social, cultural, and psychological needs. That if you have students and their English is their second language, then one has to make some adjustments in how you approach delivering instruction. Um, it's tailored learning, adapting those strategies to meet that social, cultural, and psychological needs, being sensitive to the culture of the students, so that the curriculum meets their needs on based upon their social, cultural background and psychological needs. So here's the example: adapting lesson plans for multicultural and multi-generational congregations. So if your congregation is representative of different cultures, then it's important that the curriculum reflects that. All right, so let's conclude this lesson Christian education is most effective when it accounts for both social, cultural, and psychological foundations. What I am presenting to you is that we must consider where our students come from in terms of their ethnic background, cultural background, what that looks like, and all that that entails, where they are cognitively, where they are in their emotional intelligence, what they are feeling, sensing, experiencing, the techniques that are utilized to try to get a certain behavior, whether it's positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, punishment, utilizing all of those things in our encounter and approach with the student in that learning moment. All of that's important. That we are aware of those cultural and emotional backgrounds of their learners. And a balanced approach helps to foster spiritual and psychological growth in a diverse church community. Right? If you would like a copy of the slides, let me know. Please go over this lesson again. This will assist you in your ability to answer the discussion posts as well as the writing assignment as well. Take care. This is Dr. Kevin Jackson.